I'm Charlie Jagno, Clerk of Court of St. Landry Parish. I've been in this job since 1992, and it's been my pleasure to serve the people of St. Landry Parish as their clerk. One of the favorite parts of my job is the archives and the responsibilities and the opportunities that go along with taking care of the archives of such an old parish. We were part of Imperial St. Landry Parish when it was created. And so we have records that go way back to the 1700s. Matter of fact, this courthouse was completed in 1941, but the first courthouse was built here in about 1920, and I'm sorry, 1837. There was also a structure here in 1806. 1820, it burned down, and it burned down again in 1939. That's when the present courthouse was built. Fortunately, the records were kept in an outbuilding and they weren't lost. So we have records all the way back to the colonial period. The first clerk here was Judge Lee, and he served as a clerk from 1805 to 1807. He became the parish probate judge from 1807 and he served until 1842. Our colonial records cover a period of 1764 to 1803. They're on microfilm here and available on microfilm, and they're also at the state archives. The notarial records span the time period of 1820 to 1850, and the first parish recorder was here in 1845. We have records that are imaged and indexed in various periods from the 1800s to present, and in mid 2015 we should have a constant record that's imaged and indexed and available online from 1800 to the present day. We're pretty proud of that, and that should be completed early next year. I'd like to introduce our archivist, a former archivist who's retired now, Mr. Keith Fontenot, and he can expand on what I've told you about our records here in St. Landry Parish. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Keith P. Fontenot, the former archivist for the St. Landry Parish Clerk of Court's Office in Opelousas, Louisiana, St. Landry Parish. I have been engaged in the work of indexing, restoring, keeping together old original documents and making them more accessible to the public for the past 36 years. And it has come to a point in time that I wish to share the knowledge that I have ascertained over the years on a day-by-day humdrum schedule of, indexing of records in the colonial antebellum days, and to try to give a guide to the new genealogist or historian who is trying to figure out his or her family tree. Again, it is very important to remember that the oral history is just as important as the written history. What we think today is basically mundane, boring stuff that does not amount to much. If there's a diary that's kept, as they would have been kept in the past, of the events of the day, 200 years from now, it might well become priceless. So many people do get the genealogical bug. Who am I? Where did my family come from? Who are we? It's all quite human, quite normal to ask these questions. And 99% of the time, a lot of these questions can be ascertained in your local courthouse. Again, with the land records, land sales, land deeds, marriage records, miscellaneous records, mortgages, civil suits, and a whole host of other series that do exist. However, the problem is nationwide, a lot of this stuff is in poor disrepair. And if something's not done within the next 20, 30 years to save the material, some of this information might well be lost. People say, well, you can go to Ancestry.com. True. However, if you go on the internet, don't believe everything that you see. Some stuff could be of questionable quality, questionable veracity. It's always better to go and look at the original source. And always remember, if you do use a source, always document it. If you have an ancestor that bought a parcel of land, a slave, livestock, again, put in the conveyance book and page number, original act number, the date, and fit that into the overall history of the family. You also have immigration papers that you will find within the district court minutes prior to 1911. The individual would go into open court and he would renounce allegiance to a foreign power and then swear allegiance to the United States and become a citizen of the United States. So there's a host of different sources that you can use in finding about your different ancestries. Okay, the day comes, you decide to go to the courthouse. Well, first of all, courthouses in general can be very intimidating. Nothing good happens. You go to jail, you pay a traffic fine, you have jury duty. Probably most people think the only thing that happens there is that you purchase a marriage license, and then it's an event that happens once in your life, and it's very vague. But it's amazing the amount of history, especially family history, that is stored within the clerk of court's records. You have, especially in St. Landry Parish, land sales going back to 1805 and colonial sales at the State Archives on the Opelousas Post going back to 1764. One should first realize that English was not the language of the afternoon or of the day. Also, the individuals who were engaged in transactions were not necessarily literate. They had a different set of colored spectacles through which they viewed reality. Somebody could be of one nationality with a heavy accent. The priest, the clerk, the notary could be a different nationality and heard something else. Again, you could have a John Lejeune, which could be John Young. Guillaume Janson, which could be William Johnson. Ernest, instead of E-R-N-E-S-T, O-N-I-S-S, A-N-I-S-S. Walter, A-L-T-E-R. Or you could have Calcasieu spelled as Q-U-E-L-Q-U-E-S-H-U-E, Calcasieu. And then there's always the problem with Mr. Wilson, where there's a colonial document where where the name is spelled O-U-I-I-S-I-M-E, Ouisim. So in South Louisiana, you're dealing with the South of the South, the southern borderlands. And you could be dealing with Spanish, English, French, and phonetic spellings. Again, even the acreage, you're using arpents and a French acre instead of acres. Normally, you get a property description of X number of arpents on Bayou Marie Crucan, by the ordinary depth, which is normally 4 the arpents. So you look at the situation that is facing you. Yes, it's daunting, but it's not impossible. First of all, if your family had a tradition of being Catholic, you also have Reverend Donald J. Hebert's books that are available to the public. What is interesting with this 45-volume set going back from 1760 to 1915 is that the late Reverend Hebert will give you the records of the Roman Catholic Church concerning baptismals, marriages, debts, and unlike the civil authorities, the marriage record will usually include the parents. This is a problem that many people face when dealing with trying to establish a line. There's no parents that are listed on civil marriage licenses from 1865 to 1912. If they were married in the Catholic Church, the church would list the parents, which makes life much easier. Census records are also very useful. The U.S. Census was first taken in 1790, and for every 10 years thereafter, it's my understanding that the 1890 census was lost to a fire, so you do have a gap in the information for those years. They will give you, the race of the individual, the occupation, the value, and so forth, how many people were in the home, their age, their sex, and so forth. The last census record available to the public is 1930. Excuse me, I think it's 1940 that's available because there's a 73-year time seal on the confidential information. So you figure, how will I start with myself and get through this quagmire? Well, if your family has lived in South Louisiana for generation after generation, it's not that bad. However, in a lot of cases, you have people who have lived in Louisiana, moved to Texas, and later moved on to California. Now, when you approach these documents, what is, first of all, the purpose of the marriage license? That's basically a civil contract between a man and a woman, whereby they are allowed by the sovereign to enter into a contract within X number of days. And prior to 1942, there was also a $300 bond that was also executed to the governor of the state to ensure that it was a lawful marriage. A lot of cases, the surety on the bond could be the father-in-law, or it could be somebody else, or it could be a brother. You know, it's almost impossible to say. So you do have the marriages. Estates or probates. This would come at the end of life, where it would list the individual's assets, debts, and heirs. But they do not list the individual's parents. They will list what real estate they had at one time, and who purchased real estate, be it land or slaves, and if there is a tutorship, if there are minors in the family, a tutor and under tutor will be appointed by the court to take care of the interests of the minor children. Also, people do not realize that you have a lot of information in a act of release of tutor or tutorship or under tutor, whereby this individual who performed his or her duties is being released by the minor. And in a lot of cases, they will list the deceased's father or even grandfather or grandmother. And the problem with that is that 99% of the time, this stuff is written in French, and it's handwritten. But this will give you very valuable information to where the money is coming from. What is the family tie-in? Historically, especially prior to the First World War, people did not travel that much, did not marry much out of the genetic gene pool. They pretty much stayed within the extended neighborhood. Therefore, it gave them a different view of reality. Somebody living in 1815 really had a different view of life. It was short, it was tough, and it could be short. Again, illnesses, certain conditions that we take as quite common and quite curable this day and age could also be quite lethal 200 years ago. So death was omnipresent. It was always there. You just never knew at what point in time you would depart. To continue, the new researcher could be overwhelmed by the amount of information at his or her disposal. Where do I start? Well, you know, everybody has that question, and that's why it's important to ask the member of the clerical court staff who specializes in the archives to have a beginning point. Naturally, you would want to begin with yourself. But again, what can I glean from, this information and so forth? There's a lot of information on different individuals that are not necessarily pertinent just to genealogical sources and so forth.